If you are playing a monk, you should definitely be using this build. This is probably the fastest build on open world you can use, at least for a monk. And by the way, all the footage in this video is taken by 1.7K resonance, so basically almost every single one of you should be able to have the same results as in the video. But before you just copy the skills and try it out yourself, there is some things that you absolutely need to have to get the same results. So I highly recommend watching the whole video, as there are some legendary gems you need to use. Don't worry, we don't need any 5 stars. In this build I used one star and 1 2 stars that you should use yourself. One of them can be switched out with a proper magic attributes from the gear. But what does this build provide you? So if you follow everything on this video, you should have about 50% damage increase, about 50% movement speed increase, and you can buff your party members with an AoE damaging aura. And with all this, you should be able to just run through the packs most of the time, at least. When you do have some elites, you might want to do a circle or 2 around them to actually guarantee that they will go down. Now, of course, this is only for a low resonance. If you are a high resonance, you should be able to just run through the elite monsters too without problems. But let's go through with the skills and legendaries, and after that we will talk about the attributes that will help with this build and what legendaries you need to use. We are also going to go through the set items, and I will briefly also talk some Paragon trees that you can use to make this a little bit better. Now let's move on to the abilities. We are of course using Fist of Thunder for the dash, so we can dash from back to back, and it also helps us to deal with the bosses. Cyclone Strike is a good one. We use the AoE one with this one. With the Shield of Zen we do use the burn one just to make the Cyclone Strike do a bit more damage, and also have a dot effect on this, which we will need and talk about later on. That one we use Wave of Light. This is the new essence. This just gives us a bit more AoE damage. Then we have the Inner Sanctuary. This is a new one. We use 25 attack speed and 25 damage increase with this one, and this is half of the 50% damage increase I was talking about, and this is a must-have. Alright, let's move on to the essences, and with the Fist of Thunder we are using Order Without Sin. Now this just is for the bosses, so we can defeat the bosses a bit faster. There wasn't any better ones here. With Shelters, and we are using Calefaction. This will give us a shield and also a burning aura around us that will give a burning status effect to enemies. And this goes hand in hand with balance in moderation, because with Cyclone Strike this will put a tornado around us that will deal about double damage to burning enemies. Now we are also using Eye of the Storm with the Cyclone Strike just to get 29% AoE increase to the Cyclone Strike. Also, now if you do have Awakenings, you want to use one here because of the 10% cooldown reduction, and you probably also want to use one on the Calefaction too to get that 10% cooldown reduction. You can also use magic attributes to get more cooldown reduction or get that 10% cooldown reduction without the Awakening slots. Now in the Wave of Light we are using Sonorous Prayer. This is the new one that will basically attach a bell to you that will explode or continually resound and will deal burst of damage around you. It will just increase your AoE damage. Now you do not need to awaken this, it only gives us damage. Now on the band slots we are using Chastising Radiance just for 19% damage increase on the Wave of Light. Again, there wasn't any better ones. Now on the Inner Sanctuary we are using Neckbreaker, and this is absolutely must have. This is absolutely needed. You will get 25% damage increase and 25% attack speed increase with this. Without this you cannot be as fast as we were on the video. Now this is also one good awakening if you can awaken this, although I would emphasize that if you do not have Shelter Zen or Cyclone Strike awakening, you should do that first, because those will have longer off times than the Inner Sanctuary. Because we are also using Respite Sight with the Inner Sanctuary that will give us 39% increased duration, so we don't really need the awakening slot on the helmet, but for the other ones I would highly recommend trying to get the awakenings. And again, if you don't have those, don't worry, you can use magic attributes to get skill cooldown reduction. Now let's move on to the set items. And Ishtar is absolutely must have. Without this, you don't have the movement speed, you don't have the damage to be as fast as we need to be. With the 2-piece, every time you defeat an enemy, you gain 30% movement speed for 3 seconds. So this is basically up all the time. So you basically have 30% movement speed all the time. And remember, movement speed buffs do not stack. So even if you put some movement speed legendaries, it doesn't stack with this. So this is better than you with anything you can have with a monk, although you do get 4 seconds movement speed with the new chest as a shield user, or 60% movement speed with the heal ability, but you cannot have them up 100% of the time. So this is the best one monk can actually have in the open world. Now, if you do have 50% movement speed, you will get 25% damage increase. So this will get you to 50% damage increase with the inner sanctuary. Now, of course, you do need to have 20% movement speed from gear to actually get all the way to 50%. But don't worry, if you don't have all that, you still will get 15 to 20% damage increase. And if you do have a Blood-Soaked Jade, even rank 1, this will give you 10% movement speed, which will help you to get to the 20% cap. Even I don't have 20% movement speed, I only have 15%, so I'm only getting 20% damage increase from the Isidar, but 20% is already pretty huge with the inner sanctuary, so that's already 45% damage increase. Now the second set item we will need is Withu's Urge, because we cannot hold those buffs up all the time. We definitely need the beneficial duration, and we do get 30% from 2-piece of Withu's. These two set items are must have. You cannot play this build without this. But we also have 2-piece of Banquets of Ice, because every time the enemy is affected by control damage effect from your control damage effect, you will deal 15% more damage to them, and basically every time you have Shield Vision on, you will cause a dot effect to them, and you will get this. So now we get all the way to 65% damage increase. So with this, even with a low resonance players, you should be able to just run past the packs. Now, I did say we need some gems to make this happen, and one of the gems is going to be the Viper's Bite. The 2-star Viper's Bite will give them a poison effect that will also trigger the Banquets of Ice, but this guarantees that if you do run past the pack and the pack doesn't die, now they will have the burn effect from the Shield Vision, and they will also have poison effect from the Viper's Bite. This will just guarantee that everything will die, even if you just run past them and someone stays alive. So this is kind of a must-have and probably one of the best open world PvE gems, to be honest. Now the other one, as I said, we need a lot beneficial duration. So Blessed Pebble will give us 12% beneficial effect duration if you do have this on rank 10. You can skip this if you do have some nice beneficial effects from other gear, like I do have 6% on my chest piece, and if you are going with a reforge for the duration of beneficial effect increases, this will also help you a ton with this build. Also honorable mention to Berserker's Eye. If you are a free-to-player or low spender, this will increase your damage by 16%, which is probably one of the best 1-star gems you can have and you should have if you are using even a 1-star gem. Now let's also talk about the Paragon trees. You can use Weaver to get 15% damage increase. Unseen Dynamist, every time you deal damage, you basically get 1 stack, which increases your damage by 1%. It goes up to 10, but if you do have Gifted, this will go all the way to 15. So that's another 15% damage increase you can have. You also do get 6.5% critical hit chance, which is a bit damage increase, but it's not that important. But now I still don't have every gear to level 30. So personally, I'm still using Treasure Hunter just to get that tiny bit more gold. And now that we need to open up the pet slots, I also need that extra gold to just open up those slots. And I do need the extra increased drop rate from elite monsters just to get a bit more scrap and a bit more dust. Now, if you did like the video or if you did like the build, please consider subscribing. I will try to do these kind of builds for every single class on the game once I do get everything for my monk, and I have done all the builds again with 8 set pieces and have done every single build I can imagine we could be using with the monk. I will be going towards Wizard or Blood Knight next. But I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, and I will catch you on the next one.